Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, and the BattleCry is always meant to be about inspiring you to actually get into action. And we've got a special video for you this week. It happened several weeks ago at the Illinois State Capitol in Springfield, Illinois. Really amazing event. The state director, David Winters, was there. Volunteer of the Year a couple of years ago, Barry Newman, was there. And they delivered over 100,000 petitions to their state legislators. A couple of the state legislators actually spoke. This is the kind of stuff that really inspires me to stay in the fight, because I'm out there and I'm in the fight with the grassroots. The big question for you is, are you going to be at your state capitol's rally this year? You can contact your state team at conventionofstates.com/act so you can attend. But for now, I want you to be inspired by what happened in Springfield at the Illinois State Capitol.
So if you could, please take off your hats. Okay. Father, we just thank you for today. We thank you for the state. We live in a land of liberty. Let us never forget it, and let us do everything we can to protect it, because it is a precious commodity. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, and I'd like to say, here's our flag over here. Join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to introduce Barry Newman, our grassroots coordinator. My name's David Winters, and thank you for coming. It's going to be a great event.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Barry Newman, and I want to welcome it. Stand up. Thank you, Bruce. I want to welcome everybody to our first rally in the Rotunda, and I want to thank everybody for your great support of the Convention of States movement, which in Illinois is House Joint Resolution 15 and Senate Joint Resolution 27. I would like to really thank the following members of the General Assembly who are our supporters. Representatives Brad Halbrook, Anthony DeLuca, Amy Ellick, Dave Severin, Paul Jacobs, Jed Davis, Adam M. Niemerg, Brandon Schweitzer, Chris Miller, David Fries, Blaine Wilhauer, Patrick Sheehan, Nicole Laha, Travis Weaver, Joe C. Sosnowski, Jeff Kiker, Regan Deering, Kyle Moore, and Jackie Haas. Senators Neil Anderson and Dave Syverson. Thank you all for your support. We thank each of you, and we support you in all you are doing.
Okay, to kick things off, I'd like you to hear from Representative Regan Deering from Decatur. Give her a hand of applause.
Thank you so much. I know it's kind of loud in here, so I'll try and do my best to project using my teacher voice. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you so much for being here. As introduced, I'm Regan Deering, and I call Decatur home. I'm a first-term legislator from the 88th House District, so I represent all or parts of Macon, Piatt, DeWitt, and McLean County. I am not just here as a legislator, though. I want you to know I'm here as a mom of three as well. Our oldest is away at college, and my husband and I often think about the future he is stepping into. And like so many parents, we talk about how avoiding crushing debt and having real opportunity are critical to putting him on a path to prosperity and personal fulfillment as well. And it makes me ask a bigger question. If we are right to worry that runaway student debt would limit our son Mac's future, won't runaway federal spending limit every young person's future? Because when I see unchecked spending, growing bureaucracy, and the erosion of constitutional limits, I don't just see policy debates, I think about the country my children and our children will inherit. Will they inherit a nation of opportunity, self-governance, and liberty? Or will we have them weighed down by debt, overreach, and an unaccountable federal government? And so the conversation we're having here today is not theoretical. It's about a very real question: who governs our lives? And as a legislator from Illinois, I also recognize a structural reality. In national politics, states like ours often have a very limited ability to influence the growth and scope of our federal government, even as federal policies increasingly shape our economy, our agriculture, and our daily lives. That creates a disconnect between those governed and those governing. Our founders were very clear. Power was never meant to be concentrated. It was meant to be divided, shared, and checked. Federalism was not an accident. It was a safeguard for our liberty. Yet today, families across Illinois and across America feel the consequences of a federal government that's too large, too distant, and too unaccountable. They feel it in inflation driven by overspending and in decisions handed down by unelected bureaucracies far removed from our daily lives. That's why I was proud to co-sponsor House Joint Resolution 15 and stand with the Convention of States' efforts to restore balance and return power closer to the people. This commitment to limited government, localized government, it's guiding how I legislate on your behalf. That's why I've spearheaded an effort to move the Department of Agriculture to Central Illinois, closer to farmers, producers, and communities it's meant to serve, because government works much better when it's closer to the people. In 2022, when I ran for Congress, I heard the same message from families, farmers, and small businesses and owners across our region. Washington is unaccountable and increasingly out of touch with the people it's supposed to serve. That experience only strengthened my belief that government should be closer to the people. Illinois families deserve a voice in how they're governed, and future generations deserve a government that is accountable, transparent, and responsible with both their tax dollars and their freedom. Thank you so much for all of your advocacy, your courage, and your commitment to renewing our constitutional balance. God bless you, the great state of Illinois, and the United States of America.
Next, I'd like you to hear from our sponsor in the Senate, Neil Anderson from Aledo.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm State Senator Neil Anderson. I represent the 47th Senate District, which is pretty much all of West Central Illinois. I have the largest Senate district in the state. It's summer all of 15 counties. Our founders designed a system that separates powers, not to make government weak, but to make liberty strong. When we talk about federalism, we are not talking about a political theory. We are talking about freedom itself. Federalism is about balance. The Constitution created a federal government of limited, innumerable powers. Everything else was reserved to the states and to the people. That structure protects freedom by preventing power from being concentrated in one place. When Washington grows beyond its intended role, states are meant to serve as a check. That is not partisan, that is constitutional. When decisions are made closer to home, they are more accountable. They reflect local values, and they can be corrected more quickly. When power is centralized in Washington, it becomes distant, slow, and often unresponsive to the people it affects. Illinois is different from Arizona. Florida is different from Oregon. These differences are not weakness, they are the strength of the constitutional system. Federalism allows states to serve as laboratories of democracy. It prevents a one-size-fits-all mandates from being forced on every community in America. Limited government is not about doing nothing. It's about doing only what government was meant to do and doing it well. When people ask me why federalism, my answer is simple. Power should be closest to the people. When government exceeds its constitutional bounds, liberty shrinks. When power is shared and balanced, liberty expands. The Constitution gave states a role not just in governance, but in preserving the structure of governance itself. That is not extreme. That is, in fact, the design of our founders. So with that, I want to thank you guys very much for what you're doing. Let's keep pushing. Let's get this passed, and I will continue to be here to help. Thank you guys very much.
So that was our sponsor in the state Senate. Now here's the chief co-sponsor from the House, Brad Halbrook from Shelbyville.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to the Capitol. Like he says, I'm Brad Halbrook from Shelbyville, 107th State Rep. I wanted to share with you today not just what HAR 15 does, but why I chose to lead on this very important issue. I became involved with the Convention of States effort because I believe we are watching the slow erosion of the balance our founders carefully designed. Article 5 of the Constitution gives two ways to propose amendments, through Congress and through the states. When Congress refuses to act, the states were intended to step up. And let's be honest, Congress will not discipline itself. It will not meaningfully restrain its appetite for spending. Nearly $1 trillion of new debt is generated every quarter. Today, the average debt burden is about $117,000 per citizen, or more than $200,000 per taxpayer. That's not sustainable, and it's not just. James Madison wrote in Federalist 45 that the powers of the federal government would be few and defined. What we see today is anything but that. We see omnibus spending bills that number in the thousands of pages. We see unregulated, unelected regulatory bureaucrats issuing rules with the force of law. We see unfunded mandates handed down to the states. Illinois taxpayers send billions of dollars to Washington every year, and too often that money returns with strings attached, mandates and regulations, and bureaucratic conditions. The closer government is to the people, the more accountable it is to them. That is federalism, the mutual sharing of the power between the local, state, and the federal governments. HJR 15 and SJR 27 are uniform resolutions to join other states in calling for an amendments convention, not to rewrite the Constitution, but to propose specific amendments. It takes 34 states to call it. It takes 38 to ratify any amendment. That is the highest bar in our Constitution. Nothing becomes law without overwhelming agreement across the nation. I became involved because if Washington will not correct itself, the states must. A convention of states is the constitutional remedy that the framers gave us for a federal government that has grown beyond its bounds. This is about restoring balance, restoring accountability, and restoring the republic. With that, thank you, God bless America, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
That's a warrior right there. Okay, I'd like to introduce a gentleman that I met about 4 or 5 years ago, Dan Caukins from Decatur. He's got a lot of wisdom and a lot of points to share with you. So with no further delay, here's Dan Caukins.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm Dan Caukins from Decatur. I served 6 years here in the House and was the sponsor of the legislation to get the Convention of States called here in Illinois. Was fortunate enough for you all to have sent me to Williamsburg with Brad and Tom Weber when we did the simulated convention. It was really an amazing experience, and I'm forever grateful to have had it, and I thank all of you for your hard work. So today, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in this country and why your work is so important. Our country is in a fiscal crisis. The United States now owes about $38 trillion in debt. That's about $1 trillion a year in interest that we pay.
Now think about that. That's not money that we can spend on schools. It's not money that we spend on defense or infrastructure. It's not money that we can spend on seniors or strengthening our military or securing our borders. We're not being able to, it's money that we can't spend on reducing taxes. It's not money that we can spend on reducing the deficit. We have a government that's out of control in spending. Now, Congress has the power to fix this. They hold the power of the purse. And yet, year after year, they don't, and it doesn't matter, regardless of which party is in power. They don't have the guts, they don't have the willpower, they don't have the convictions to fix this. And that's why we have Article 5 in the Constitution. It's up to us. And now, because of that, it's time for the states to step in. It's time for the states to take control and rein in the federal government spending. And that's not a radical idea, because that's part of our Constitution. And that's exactly why the framers of the Constitution gave us Article 5. It's a way for the states to act when Congress refuses to act. And it's time now to use that power. Now, another part of this is term limits. And when it comes to term limits, I had the opportunity to lead a group at that simulated convention to talk about term limits. We had 15 states in our group, members from every state. And we had, unfortunately, Rhode Island. I don't know if you all know this, but Rhode Island did not participate in the first constitutional convention, and they refused to come to our simulated convention as well. So, but in our group, we had 15 states, and it was a first-hand look for us to how a real convention would operate. Ideas were introduced, different perspectives, obviously, were debated, amendments were offered, and after hours and hours of very thoughtful discussion, we drafted a proposed amendment to the United States Constitution. And our group approved it, and then I was very fortunate enough to be able to take that proposal to the full convention. All of the delegates had an opportunity to dissect what we did, to ask questions, to offer their comments, and it was a very thoughtful and I have to say a very, very challenging intellectual discussion that I stood there and defended what our group had proposed as a constitutional amendment to the other states, to everyone. And when the discussion was concluded, a vote was taken, and the amendment passed. So this was a proposed constitutional amendment that was passed in the Article 5 convention. And had this been a real convention, that constitutional amendment would have then been put out to all the states for the ratification, the 38 states that would have to have ratified our constitutional amendment on term limits. So the process worked. And it worked just as the framers had imagined. And that was very gratifying. So now, as I sit here today, I want to encourage all of you to keep working. Keep working right here in Illinois. Keep speaking to civic groups. Keep talking to your legislators. Illinois could be one of the 34 states if we keep working. We can't give up. But even if Illinois isn't one of the 34 states, and I truly believe we will get 34 states at least to call a convention, Illinois will participate. And when Illinois participates, you all will be the experts. You all, this group, will have the knowledge, the background, the connections to help guide Illinois into that convention. And perhaps, maybe even one of us might be a delegate to that convention. So my charge to you today is don't just watch history. Make history.
While we're waiting for a few more legislators to come out of session, I just wanted to share a couple of fun facts that were handed down by National recently. The average debt per citizen right now in our country is $117,000 per person. That includes newborn babies, what have you. The average debt per taxpayer is $204,000. And like Dan mentioned, we're adding $1 trillion in debt every 90 days. And I've never met any organization that can spend itself to success. As we always mention to people, we are an amendments convention. We are not a constitutional convention, although our enemies, the statists who like big government, want to throw dispersion and noise at us. But the Constitution has been successfully amended 27 times out of 10,000 attempts. It's a very high bar. There's a reason why it's a high bar. It's very difficult because our founders wanted you and the citizenry and them to know that the states, we really want to do this if we amend the Constitution. We know the federal government will never discipline itself long term from a spending and a regulatory standpoint. Here's a golden nugget for sure. Congress will never impose term limits on themselves. There's just too much money, there's just too much influence. You can amend the Constitution, as you know, through Congress or the state houses. They say an Article 5 convention has never been done, so we're going to be the first to do it. We've been at this since 2013, and quite frankly, once we hit 20, we see another 6 or 7 passing this year. If you've been following the votes in South Dakota, Iowa, Montana, Wyoming, Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina. If all those were to pass this year, we'd be at 28 or 29. We're getting closer here, folks. And don't forget, there's a lot of states that haven't weighed in yet, like Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. There's a lot of states that are still thinking about taking this up. Here in Illinois, we've been at this since 2013. Be on the lookout this year and next year for the 34 ready legislation. You're either 34 ready or you're 16 not ready. And what 34 ready is, how do you choose commissioners to a national convention of states? It's up to the state house. However, convention of states provides a framework for these states to go ahead and choose the criteria and the rules on how to select commissioners and delegates. When people ask me why I support Convention of States, I like to say we have a runaway federal government, and that's the number one. I always ask, how many people here have kids, grandkids, nephews, and nieces? So I see a show of hands. Well, it's all about their future. What kind of America are we handing over to them? And COS truly is the only problem that's as big as the solution. I always like to remind people, with term limits on federal officials, let's get both stars from both sides of the aisle in Springfield up to the next level of federal service. This creates more leadership opportunities in the General Assembly. A lot of people forget that those positions here in Springfield need to be backfilled when our stars, Democrats and Republicans, go up to the next level. Folks, I think I don't mind people having experience in government, but let's not let them stick around for a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th decade. How about it? I think it's a little bit too long, right? Enough is enough. And let's stop all this insider trading that's going on. This thing about trading on influence has got to stop. Let's also term limit not only Congress, but the unelected and the regulated bureaucrats. Let's stop the heavy-handedness of the federal government, including unfunded mandates. It's not fair for them to pass rules that the state of Illinois has to support. And by the way, we remain here in Illinois a donor state. How many bridges in West Virginia and Mississippi do you think we built with our own money? That money needs to stay here, not go to other states. And let's return to federalism, which is the mutual sharing of power between local, state, and federal entities. Every proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution stands on its own for ratification, and that means no more omnibus spending bills. And finally, each state gets one vote per amendment at the convention, irrespective of size. And let's get this done. This is becoming a reality, and you're a part of history. And with that, I'm going to bring up Tom Weber from McHenry County. And Tom, take it away.
How's it going, everybody? You guys all having a good time here today? I don't know if it's a good time, but it's a necessary time, right? So bear with me. I actually did write a speech, which I don't always do, but so you guys all have a short drive, long drive, all over the place. So first off, I want to say thank you for giving me the honor of representing Illinois as one of the delegates at the Colonial Williamsburg Convention of States event. That was pretty amazing. I got to meet legislators from across all but I think one state. And amazingly enough, from different backgrounds, different opinions, and everything else, we were able to sit down in committees and work on some common sense legislation that affects all of our states, all of our people. It was a great experience, but at the end of the day, we were able to come together and agree that there should be and there should remain 9 Supreme Court justices. Right? I think we can all agree on that. You know, we want to prevent the packing of the courts from either side. And that is something that's worked since the beginning, and we want it to continue working as we move forward. Interstate commerce, another thing our federal government seems to overstep their bounds, and limit federal overreach. But most importantly, and I know everybody before me has talked about it, was probably that we agreed, came together and all of us agreed on implementing term limits on our federal congressmen and senators. You know, if we sit around and wait for Congress to implement term limits on ourselves, I think we are going to be here a lot longer, folks. So I think that's something that we need to work towards. And anyway, it was an honor to be there. I'm honored to represent Illinois. Great experience. If anyone ever gets that opportunity, I would say highly recommend taking them up on that. A convention of states offers several important benefits. Accountability, fiscal responsibility. It reminds Washington, D.C. that sovereignty begins here at the state level. If you look up at the ceiling, the glass, our Illinois state flag up there, it says in our seal, state sovereignty. I find that very important. Most people probably in school are not educated on what state sovereignty means. We are a union of states. The 10th Amendment prescribes that the federal government has only those powers delegated to it by the Constitution, and that all other powers not forbidden to the states by the Constitution are reserved to the states or to its people. A convention of states is the opportunity to utilize those checks and balances outlined in our founding documents, our Constitution. Listen, folks, we are all human. It's not always easy coming here, making your voice heard. And sometimes it can even be scary. That's why I remind myself constantly that this isn't about me. I do what I do, and you do what you do. I have a wife. She's amazing. She puts up with all this political stuff. Let me tell you, those wives deserve a special award to go through this. I have 2 children who, by the grace of God, have given me 5 grandchildren. I do what I do for the people who aren't able to be here and do it for themselves. I fight for the preservation of our liberty so that my children, my grandchildren, and your children and their grandchildren can have the same bright future that we had growing up here in the United States of America. We owe it to them, the next generation, to do what we can do. To pass on the benefits of the most prosperous nation on the planet Earth. I just want to say thank you. Continue the fight. Let's work together. Do everything we can to preserve liberty for us and the next generation. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been real special today to hear from the 3 delegates from Illinois that went to Williamsburg, and they all were put on separate committees: term limits, fiscal restraint, and controlling scope and jurisdiction. I'd like to bring up the next senator, Chris Balma from Shanahan.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for journeying down and for the opportunity for me to speak. So, anybody have a concern about a $38 trillion debt? Anybody have a concern about somebody being in power for 40 years? Anybody concerned about controlling scope and jurisdiction from an overall perspective? We got to get those constitutional rights back. I tend to believe in the Bible. I'm a Christian. I've accepted Christ. I live by the Bible, and the Bible says we cannot have out-of-control spending. The dettee is beholden to the debtor. We've got to get spending under control. We cannot continue to spend more than we bring in. We will lose this nation. So I stand very firmly for what the Convention of the States stands for. A lot of folks like on my side of the aisle and the others say we can't let a runaway, convention occur. I get that. We're all in the same boat. But if we don't take the first step, we will lose the nation, and we can't do that. So I am all about controlling spending. I was at a large company for 31 years. We had people in positions until they matured and were on the downside. From an overall perspective, jobs rotate, people come and go. It should be no different than at the state and the federal level. Term limits would be a fantastic thing. So thank you for all being here. Thank you for your incredible perseverance. I get on a daily basis emails saying who's additionally signed on to the Convention of the States in my district and the others, and it's a fantastic thing to be able to connect with the people, everyday folks that just want to see this nation thrive. So I appreciate you all being here. I want to work very hard to get our spending under control and to ensure that we have the sovereignty of this nation continue on for another 250 years. Thank you so much for being here and for your hard work, and God bless America.
So we'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Convention of States really is the only solution as big as the problem. And I think we all know that we can't rely on D.C. to control itself. It takes average citizens like you and me to stand up when things aren't going well. So again, Illinois is going to get an invite to a Convention of States. We got to get ready for that. And we see a path to 34 with or without Illinois. We'd like to be part of the 34, but we're making plans whatever happens. And it's going to be great to see what amendments come back to the state houses for ratification. If I were a bet man, I'm going to say more than 10. But it's going to be a great thing. And what you're seeing is your patriotic duty in action today, here and now. And you do make a difference with Convention of States action. So thanks, everybody, for coming, and have a safe trip home.